Good afternoon, folks, and welcome into the Senate Government Operations Committee meeting of Thursday, January 22nd, 2026. We're joined for our first issue with the Agency of Administration Secretary, Sarah Clark. And it's good to see you, Sarah. I think you know everyone on the committee. We can walk around the room if you don't. And
just Senator Worley.
okay.
Worley's district.
Yeah, so everybody else is really familiar. And we have about a half an hour to just listen to legislative priorities from the administration. So welcome.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm Sarah Clark. I'm the Secretary of Administration. Pleasure to be back with this committee again this year. I think I came last year to talk a little bit more about myself. And the Agency of Administration was my first confirmation last year. So that was exciting. Thank you again for confirming me. So I've been in the role of Secretary of Administration on either interim or permanent basis for about a year and a half now. And it certainly has flown by because there really is never a dull moment in state government. I think you all can appreciate and experience that yourselves. And that's no different at the Agency of Administration. I am a almost 22-year state employee that have served in a variety of roles, primarily financial management, but also some more administrative roles as well. And it really is the honor of my career to be Secretary of Administration. I take tremendous pride in the work of state government and our public servants. I am always encouraged and inspired by the stories I hear of just the day-to-day functions, let alone some of the life-saving functions that our employees do. But I find it very inspirational, and I've really built a career energized by public service because I think it does mean something. It means something to me, and I know it means a lot to our roughly 8,000 state employees. So it is an honor to serve as Secretary of Administration. The Agency of Administration really provides some of the core functionality of state government that really allows our agencies and departments to offer the services and the programs that they do. I view my job as trying to make sure that the road is smooth for our agencies and departments to proceed. And sometimes that's not always easy, but that I try to bring people together to make it easy and also clear the way, develop clear protocols to ensure that that happens. Transparency is very important. I think in my role, not only across state government and our stakeholders, but I think to Vermonters to be able to see what we do in state government, how much things cost, how we do things, to have that lens. And that's a priority of our agency and also of this administration. Within the Agency of Administration, as you are aware, we have a few different departments that support the Secretary's office in these endeavors. And those include the Department of Finance and Management, which it was a big week in finance and management in my world as well, because as you know, we delivered the FY27 operating budget as well as the capital bill budget adjustment were delivered on Tuesday. I appreciate this committee's flexibility. Originally, I was going to come in last week, but even the brief amount of time that I'll be here, like sometimes that time matters because it really is a full out sprint on getting the budget here in a manner for us all to really start the work. We deliver it on Tuesday, but we start the work together to negotiate what that budget's going to be.
Senator Clarkson.
Sarah often, after the budget address, there are copies of the budget and the speech. Happily, Amanda emails us all the speech now, so we don't have to pick that up. We used to do that. But where can I get a copy of the budget printed out? Is it from Karen or from?
So that is an excellent question. And actually, I think this year, for probably the first time ever, and some of it was due to timing, and because we post all of the budget materials on the Finance and Management website, we did not really print copies. If you recall, there used to be little bound copies.
I know we like them.
Yeah. And so we do It is all on the Finance and Management website. I'm happy to share that link. I'm also happy to provide some copies because we do, they've all been handed out, but we did have a few copies of in the governor's office here in the State House, but happy to follow up with you, Senator Clarkson, and the rest of the committee if you would
Send us the link
benefit
and then we
from
can
that.
send it to Tony, print it out, because it's a document that's nice to actually have at home.
Well, it's actually warms my heart to hear you say that because I also like a hard copy of that book and I have I've been doing this for a long time. I have several of them in my current office because from time to time you want to kind of flip back. You can get a quick flavor of what was going on in Vermont just by reading that book, the letter from whoever the governor was at the time, as well as all the highlights that are in the budget. It's a real quick snapshot to understanding. So I will follow up and make sure you have that as you in your review of the governor's budget.
Exactly, and also in each one of our committees, we are talking about, well, what was in the budget, what wasn't.
Yeah.
Especially the economic development. So I really needed it. I mean, we're getting other people to get it, but very helpful also because the speech had so few specifics on the actual cash. Delegation, that would be helpful.
Can
Send us
do.
the link and I'll get Tony to print that.
And I do, as you all know, we've had, starting from the pandemic to now, there was such a significant infusion of federal dollars into Vermont's economy, which we worked together to invest those dollars wisely. And I think we really did make strategic investments that have put Vermont in much better standing than before the pandemic. We also experienced significant, I'll call them revenue surpluses during the last couple of years as well, which led to a very different budget this year. It was much more like before the pandemic. And so our investments are fewer, continue to be strategic, but not the same appropriations, one-time appropriations across state government. Commissioner Gresham likes to talk about, I think last year, if you look at the budget bill, all of the one-time appropriations in section B 1101, and they start from letter A. And I think last year that might have gone down to a double P, which means we went all the way through the alphabet and then we're doubling down again. This year, I think we're at H or J. So it's just like it's a visual depiction of kind of how it's different this year, but still able to make some strategic investments. And we're going to talk more about that probably at another time. So I will follow up. We also, in the Agency of Administration, we have the Department of Taxes, which to spend the money, you got to collect the money. And so they are a revenue arm. And so play a very important role, obviously. There's also the Department of Human Resources, who's within my agency and the management of our workforce, as well as the kind of recruitment for new employees and all that entails. And we have the Department for Buildings and General Services, which maintain and operate all of our state-owned buildings, as well. Play a really key role in development of the capital bill and when we're going to contemplate new facilities or improvements to facilities. They are a key part of my management structure. We also have the Department of Libraries, which I think that your committee also has jurisdiction over them. And so if you haven't met with Kathy Del Neo, the state librarian, she's just a real dynamo. And I think most people love libraries. Kathy probably loves them most of all. And it's kind of a privilege to have them in my agency, have the state librarian. So
Yes, Senator Clarkson.
So given that I haven't seen the budget and on this particular item, I'm very keen, given the federal money has been cut completely. So, yeah, I believe the
library
for libraries was cut completely.
it was not cut completely.
Yeah, so I'm just curious how I hope they're well taken care of in our budget.
Yeah, I do think that the libraries have been taken care of in the budget that that we submitted. And to your point, Senator Clarkson, federal funding, when you look at the priorities of the Secretary of Administration, federal funding is always important, but in this very uncertain environment with the federal administration, it's been even more critical to stay on top of the changes that we're seeing at the federal level and trying to evaluate calmly and assess like the rhetoric from reality, because it's with this administration, it can be two very different things. And in the case of library funding, there have been, I think, several threats and iterations over the last, let's say, 14 months about where their federal funding was going to land. But as of right now, today, it remains at the levels it was prior to this administration, but there have certainly been threats against it.
Senator Bielski.
Yeah, I have I have a question. I think in addition to sort of what you're saying, the saying one thing and doing another, we've also seen things where it happens and then it unhappens, like with the SAMHSA cuts.
Yes,
You
yes.
know, so I really appreciate the additional
Yes.
burden for your team
Mhm.
in trying to just figure it all out. Sort of circling back, I know this is connected. Historically, we've left a lot of federal money on the table as a state, and I wonder if, I wanted to first acknowledge all the additional work before I ask the next question, and sort of if there is any systematic way that we're evaluating what federal money is available that we may not be taking advantage of, and being able to be in communication with you about what we may need to do legislatively to draw that. Because I don't want to leave the federal dollar on the table.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I actually want to hear more about maybe some examples of what you mean about federal dollars that we've left on the table. Because I do think we try to maximize federal dollars to the extent that we're able and that it aligns with our state's priorities, right? Because it doesn't always necessarily
That's a fair
align,
point.
right? And sometimes we are challenged by the match that might be needed to draw down those federal dollars. But really, as we evaluate and put together a budget, when there are those situations where federal dollars are available and we need to provide the state match, we really, and it aligns with our Vermont priorities, we do try to make the pathway to come up with those state dollars. When you talk about transportation fund, as you know, that was one of the big, I'd say, initiatives in our budget proposal. And the changes that we're proposing are really to be able to ensure Vermont's ability to fully draw down federal transportation dollars, not only because we don't want to leave money on the table, but because our infrastructure in Vermont needs it. And the structural reforms that we need to do for the transportation fund to ensure our ability to do that. And so the transportation budget this year is a package of options that you may have heard some about, but one of them is this motor vehicle purchase and use tax, which is about $50 million a year, about $50 million a year of those motor vehicle purchase and use funds have gone to the education fund for a period of years. And so we're proposing to start to phase the structure.
Calling it back, as it were.
Calling it home, if you will. And that'll be a discussion we have, but I think, to your point, Senator Bohofsky, to ensure our ability to draw down those federal transportation dollars. And I love talking about the budget, so I know it's a little off course, but I love talking about the budget, as you can probably tell.
We appreciate it, given your past engagement.
One of our, the biggest portions of our budget is Medicaid, right? And that's also, when you look at our total funding, the largest portion of that is typically Medicaid dollars. And we, as you see, our federal funds and our state funds increasing over time. A lot of that is typically attributable to the Medicaid program, because that's really where Vermont gets more bang for its buck in terms of the partnership between federal and state government. It's also true right now with the federal administration that the Medicaid program is experiencing some change. And you'll see in the budget that we delivered some resources at the Department of Vermont Health Access, both funding and positions that will allow that department to deal with some of those changes. Most notably, the redeterminations for Medicaid eligibility historically have happened on an annual basis. Federal legislation now requires that to happen twice a year, which takes more people and time. So
I'm sure you use more.
Yeah.
People
To
who
administer it, definitely. Yeah. And so,
But we're not making a choice to backfill some of the Medicaid money we're losing on the feds.
if maybe are you referring to the Affordable Care Act subsidies or?
Yes, that's a decision there, obviously.
Yeah, that would be very
Every one of those.
challenging for our state to be able to make that choice because it's a federal program. But we're doing all that we can to support Vermonters in these changes.
Senator Ghosty?
I just, so I appreciate, I'm trying to understand a little bit more, and perhaps Senator White, who just walked in, will be able to help me as well. So purchase and use,
Yeah, yes. Perfect timing.
the purchase and use shift. How does that help us draw down more federal fund, and what's the plan to make up that hole in that fund?
So I think the FY 27 budget does propose a $10 million general fund transfer into the education fund to backfill, if you will, the loss of that revenue into the ed fund.
Okay.
And then that $10 million, and Senator White probably has a lot of information on that.
Yeah, maybe it's so
soon yet,
The
but
canvases slides, and we
Yeah.
have a whole.
we are able to, with that $10 million, there are many paving and bridge projects around the state that the agency will be able to put in motion as a result of that.
And that would be federally matched.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
that's what I was trying to understand. Like, how does us using that money differently bring down a little bit?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I think it's $9 to 1, something like that.
That's my understanding in general, but I want to confirm either with Senator White or with my colleagues at AOT if there's any variability in that 90-10 match. Thank you. So, but it does leverage a lot of federal dollars in any instance.
Yeah, we should be doing the entire amount of 33 million, but we're not doing that.
Well,
Because it's not that we're getting, not with purchase and use necessarily, but the idea of we're getting the 10 million, we're getting more projects. No, we're just getting more of the ones that were cut.
Right. Getting more back.
So, yeah, we're getting more back. And towns are getting less as well. It's not going to help
The
them.
town highway 8 is,
I know.
yeah.
So,
I don't want to go totally down that road. Well, I was just missing, there was a link in that chain that I was missing.
But that's also at the moment, correct, Senator White? I mean, things may change.
yeah, things may change.
Things change here.
Yeah.
Never.
Budgets are a negotiation,
Yeah.
right? That's how it
All
works.
16 projects that have been added will go to Windsor County. That might change.
The toll booths that we're putting in right here.
So also, in addition to the departments in the agency of administration, we have some offices within the secretary's office, some that I think you're very familiar with. The Chief Performance Office, which really tries to empower state government to continuously improve, if you will.
Never been.
And for an office of 2 people, they are small and very mighty. And they offer a lot of training, consulting, if you will, to various projects in state government that really attempts to help us maximize our efficiency and productivity. There's also the Office of Racial Equity that I think is a really important component of state government that didn't exist, I think, going back maybe 5 years. It might be a little bit longer than that, but it's a relatively new addition to state government. It really is focused on making, allowing for the equitable treatment and representation and decision-making across state government, but also to Vermonters as a whole. And that is an invaluable part of my office and play a role in the decision-making that happens and helping us to evaluate the impact of proposals. We have the State Recovery Office in the Secretary's office. Douglas Farnham is the Chief Recovery Officer. I know he's been into this committee many times. And, you know, coming out of the pandemic and the kind of historical infusions of federal dollars that the revitalization in Vermont and a variety of areas that allowed us to do. Doug, when he was deputy secretary, took on that role, but then with the floods of 2023 and 2024, you know, we felt the need to create the state recovery officer, Douglas Farnham, and then the office that really helps to coordinate, spearhead those efforts. A lot of the right now, as we deal with the 2023 and the 2024 disasters, you know, working with FEMA, our federal partner, and other federal partners on coordinating those efforts. And so Doug leads the charge of the state there.
Senator Bielski?
If you should, I mean, is that a limited service position, or is that now a permanent position?
It is, so Doug himself is an exempt position, right? That I don't think, I mean, it's a discussion, but the intent probably is for it to not be forever. We repurposed an old exempt position and we've created it in session law or statute. I have to confirm that his position exists. The employees in Doug's office are limited service positions. They're funded a variety of ways, but the American Rescue Plan Act, that's huge, more than $1 billion of funds that they help administer. So that's one of the ways in which they are paid, as well as like they do a lot of work on FEMA. Coronavirus relief funds go into the Wayback Machine, like that's starting from close to the start of the pandemic. But Doug and his also small but mighty team lead us through some pretty complex federal reporting structures and coordination across state government, because it's critical. These dollars have timelines, and it's critical that we meet those timelines so that we can retain those
I
dollars.
know Senator Clarkson has a question. Help us out, because Senator Clarkson and I were trying to remember Sue Zeller. It just
Zeller.
came to me.
It just popped. Sue Zeller.
Yeah.
Seller.
She was the chief performance officer.
She was the chief performance officer, and I worked
She
for
created
Sue
the
for many
office.
years. She did.
She's the original.
Yeah.
Doug Farnham, heard.
Interesting.
So I did want to also mention,
Appreciate
and
it.
we'll get to your question in a second.
I was just gonna go right there.
Oh, you were?
Well,
Oh,
I was gonna go to that and build on something else.
Oh.
Yeah.
okay. We had the opportunity yesterday to have Doug Racine
Yeah.
in
Oh,
our
that's
committee to speak about a report as a result of, I think, Act 119. I think that was the right number. Having to do with suggestions, recommendations to improve the efficiency of the Agency of Human Services. And you are held in very high regard
Oh,
by Doug. He really made a point of mentioning you
that's
more than once
wonderful.
yesterday. So,
Yes, we do go way back as well. So,
yeah,
yeah. Almost work together directly.
Well, that's.
he did mention that.
So,
And
oh,
then,
did he? Oh, that's great.
unfortunately, phew.
Yes.
I don't
He said it right here on the record. You got hired, he got fired.
Senator Clarkson.
So I just wanted to build on the chief performance officer
Yeah.
and that office and how you use it,
Mhm.
because I'm not sure it's used as fully as it might. And second, the reason Doug Farnham's job, the chief recovery officer, is, I think, a long-term job, is that he only this fall closed out the last Irene account.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry that these things take forever, and having a consistent pair of eyes, not that Doug was doing it since 11, but
Yeah.
having a consistent pair of eyes on that is critically important.
And I think that that's a conversation that we should definitely have. And I don't have an answer to it yet, because I agree with you, right? Going way back to Irene, and I think Neil Lunderville and then Sue Minter were the recovery
Yeah.
officers then. And now, Doug. And, we came out of a pandemic, which was its own kind of disaster.
That wasn't a disaster.
It wasn't.
That's gotta be counted.
It really was. And I don't know, probably the biggest one of our lifetime, in that way.
Financial impact.
Right? But then to have floods in 2023, 2024, and let's not forget 2025 on the same day.
Yeah. No vacation.
Yes, exactly. No one's allowed to leave or.
Yeah.
So I think this is probably not going to change going forward, the pace at which we experience these types of disasters, and being able to respond and be coordinated, and to have a kind of a playbook, if you will, because I wasn't in my role in 2023 when it was really very significant, right? We look at downtown Montpelier and the Capitol complex and the state infrastructure, recognizing impacts were felt throughout Vermont. So I wasn't here for that. I benefited in 2024 when I was interim secretary at the time from having the playbook, if you will, from the year before, because we knew what to do or how to start assessing the damage and start supporting Vermonters. And so that knowledge can't be lost.
Yeah, Senator.
My chief performance officer thing, I want to talk about. I think that office is underused. I think it should be informing. To me, that office ought to be reporting to the legislature, ought to be part of our legislative boot up. How is the state doing? Where are we on some very specific measures? The administration should be taking all their measures and data that they collect into account as you build your budget, as you build your policy positions. I just think it's a way underused office and could be so much more, particularly as we look at setting up a data trust bank. which is, Kendall Smith and Savannah and we've all been working on in the state workforce order. But anyway, I just want to put in a plug for actually you using that office that Sue created much more effectively.
So Justin Kinney is now the chief performance
Right.
officer, and he actually worked with Sue for a number of years
Yeah.
before she retired. And so we do the best that we can to incorporate that office to our decision making, but can also acknowledge there's always room for improvement, and using data and performance metrics in our decision making is something that we should all strive for. I think on the House side, there is a bill, if you recall, the Government Accountability Committee.
Yes.
We've been talking about it a lot.
Yes, so
Yes.
that it's kind of been stranded a little bit, and Jeff,
An orphan.
and so I think, and Justin continues to kind of push for the importance of that committee, both for the legislative and the executive branch, and so acknowledge what you're saying, and then, I think there's a path for us to work together to elevate that work.
Senator Diosky.
So I have a couple things, because I wasn't actually done talking about the chief recovery officer, and I'm really glad to hear you say that to acknowledge that this is just going to keep happening, and that really, and the reason I asked about it being a limited service position is because I seem to recall Doug stating that it wasn't meant to be sort of permanently there, but I think it should be.
Yeah,
And so I'd love to be in conversation about that, as I think it helps us to draw down federal funds. It helps us to do that, to not miss out on things, and just frankly provides better service to Vermonters in some of the worst times in their life. So I think there's a lot of value add in addition to financial cost savings, which I guess is also a value add.
yeah, I agree.
I'm really glad to hear that. But then you brought up government accountability as a committee that we had a long conversation about. And I'd really like to be a partner with you on that. I was on the summer government accountability group that put forward some stuff with the orphaned bill. So I'd really like to be a partner, because I think that we're at a political point in time where there is record low trust in government. And I think there's a lot we can do. I want to be clear, this is not me saying that I think that we are all doing terrible. I don't think we are.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're doing a very good job of really highlighting that and really being transparent about that. And I think we could do better to build that public trust. And I'd love to partner with you on that. I think I'm, with the permission of my chair, going to ask for a committee bill to be started to kind of try to work on that.
Okay.
And I love.
Yeah, and I'll take this back with Justin. Like, again, we do discuss this and like what's the best path forward. So we're ready to talk. You guys are ready to put whatever your proposals are forward.
Yeah, and I'm also happy to meet sort of, to just have a more informal conversation about what everyone's thoughts are as that happens.
I think if we get a bill put together by next week, we'll be
Okay.
able to at least introduce it.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off, sir, if you have other things. It is 2:30, so.
Oh,
we go
it goes
pretty quickly.
fast.
Time flies. I'm always available to come back if you want to hear more about, what our priorities are and what we're working on in the agency.
What are your asks for us?
Ooh.
I mean, we haven't heard one ask for the legislature there. I know the administration likes to think they can always
So-
go it alone, but
so-
actually you do need us occasionally.
Well, maybe, I was here 2 years ago, really, talking about, there was a government accountability component of it with Justin, but also grants management component. And maybe it's not necessarily an ask, but I'll take the opportunity to let you know how we reflected upon those legislative conversations that happened both in this committee and in House GovOps, led by a lot of community providers who are recipients of state grants or pass-through grants from the federal government. And there was a lot of, I think, honest feedback to the process and some of the challenges that those organizations experienced. And so we convened over the summer, not through legislative direction, but from conversations and understanding, like, we needed to be proactive in responding to some of the issues that folks were raising from outside of state government. So Nick Kramer, who is my chief operations officer, he convened a group at my request that included both internal state government stakeholders, so think grants managers, auditors, and nonprofit providers. He convened a series of meetings to walk through some of the challenges that both sides faced, to come up with a series of recommendations for how we can upgrade our processes in Bulletin 5, which is our grants management policy. And so we're planning to roll some of that out, and it might be something, if you have time, you might be interested in hearing about the results of that work, really spurred on by legislative discussion.
Senator Warren.
I think you've done a pretty good job this year. I think the future years are going to be extremely difficult because if you start losing the global commitment waiver,
Yeah. Yes.
and then you have the provider tax being cut by the federal government over time, when it
Yep.
comes to general fund,
Yep.
I think it's going to be really difficult moving forward. Do you agree?
I do agree we're gonna have significantly more pressures going forward. And, you know, we saw that it got, I think, buried a little bit in the media headlines coming out of last week's emergency board, where it was kind of like things are right on track, which when you're looking at the billions and billions of dollars, it is right on track. But the general fund did experience a downgrade in revenue in both 26 and 27, roughly 8 million in each year. Which we accommodated for in the budget that we delivered. But one of the primary drivers of that downgrade was the provider tax and the changes at the federal level. That's, you know, in some ways good because it's reducing the tax burden for healthcare providers, but it reduces the revenue into the general fund for the state. And so we will, I think, continue to face those
Yeah, I think it's going to
tough
be
situations.
exactly. Someone's going to have to make a decision between services and costs.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got some. Everyone's not just you.
Yeah.
Everyone.
We will collectively have to face, I think, what'll be a harder reality, more like the budgets, you know, within the governor's budget speech, you know, reference some prior challenging times. And, you know, really, I was here in 2009 when it was crashing, when our revenues, I think they had to convene.
Me too,
Because
we took a pay cut with already very modest pay.
Yeah.
The legislature took a pay cut. Do you remember that?
State employees did too,
Which, yes.
you know, and
So the other element in that
That's why we have those funds now. We have
outlook
those
was the corporate tax.
Mhm.
And I think it speaks to the level of confidence that businesses have. What normally happens, from what I understand, is they can have whatever tax they pay sort of paid forward and just keep things moving. And this was one of those quarters, or maybe a month, where they grabbed some of that
Yeah.
back. And that,
Impact.
yeah, and so I don't know how deeply that affects the confidence of business people, but it struck me that
Yeah.
that was an unusual thing to have happened. So we're hoping that income tax and sales and use tax and
yeah,
all of that continues to grow.
we'll be closely watching. I know you will too, but even as we move to the end of the year, you know, we're not out of the woods yet. So, yeah,
We've just begun this. Oh, the end of July.
the fiscal year, yeah.
Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you so
time
much.
today,
Appreciate
sir.
your time.
You bet.
Yeah.
We'll have you back.
Sounds great.
Okay,
Bye, Sarah.
are you? do you
I
need-
did have a quick
Oh.
question. It might be for tax, so I can,
For me?
yeah, so
Oh,
I.
sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Break drop, I'm out. No,
Well, welcome back, Sarah.
And it may be for tax, and by all means,
Sure.
feel free to tell me if it is, but I can ask them, but the federal tax cuts, are we tracking? And I mean, just
Yeah.
sort of across Vermonters, are we tracking what we expect that to be? Because I think realistically, we're talking a lot about cost and we're talking a lot about services, but we also could capture that revenue to reinvest in some of these holes that are being created by the whole system. So I'm just wondering if you have a sense of that.
Yeah, so I do want to have the
Okay.
tax department follow up with you, but I will say they work very closely actually with a great team at the Joint Fiscal Office to kind of come to consensus on what those federal tax changes mean for Vermont.
Mhm.
And so they can provide you with a more full picture of both the tax, there's the tax cuts, but so there's some wins and losses from a revenue perspective,
Mhm.
right? And but yeah, I'm actually meeting with them shortly.
Awesome.
Really
Yeah.
action.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, thanks all.
Really, do you
And now
feel a
you-
need to have a quick break, or shall we just move along?
You
Up to
gave
you.
gave us.
Did you?
Well, okay, let's move along. I see that, Sophie Sadati is come in and, I don't know whether I had you up first. Let me just check the agenda. Actually, yes, I did. Well, Senator Bielski's bill is the next one we're going to take up, S-89, which was actually introduced last year. This is an act related to expanding survivor benefits. If you want to lead off, even from your chair there, you can, and then we'll have Sophie walk through the bill.
Perfect.
Okay.
I am more than happy to do that. So I actually think we briefly visited this bill last year. I'm a little afraid to say this, but I'm going to anyways. It's a fairly simple little bill. And the proposal is that it extends survivor benefits to our state law enforcement officers, corrections employees, family service division employees, employees of the state operated therapeutic community residents or the inpatient psychiatric hospitals who die in the line of duty or from an occupational related illness. As people may know or may not know, the last state employee that actually died on the job was a family services division, family services worker, Laura Sobel. And currently these death benefits go to a pretty narrow scope of people, and they've been proposed in a couple of other spaces to be expanded. But I think it's really important that as we talk about expanding them, we talk about expanding them to anyone who works in a dangerous space where they are at risk of losing their life because of the work that they do. Senator White may remember a rather heated exchange between the two of us in the previous biennium when the bill came forward simply to expand this to sheriffs.
Oh, yeah.
Which, to be clear, my issue was not that it be expanded to sheriffs. It's that we often forget about the highly women populated fields that also work in dangerous fields like nurses in our therapeutic hospital and family service divisions workers. So that's the genesis of this bill. I don't imagine, we can't predict how frequently it's going to apply, so we can't really get an exact amount of what's it going to cost, because the hope is that nobody ever dies in the line of duty, but the reality is that sometimes they do. So that is the genesis of this bill, what it can do, who it applies to. I also think it's important to note that law enforcement and possibly some other emergency services, but I'm going to let Sophie make sure that we're up to date on that, do have access to a federal death benefit that none of these other workers would. So it is an additional reason for me why, if we're going to do it for people who already have access to a federal benefit, we should definitely do it for the people who are in dangerous positions that don't.
Any questions for Senator Bielski? Okay, Sophie Sadati, welcome. And if you could take us through the bill.
Yes, so Sophie Sadati for the Office of Legislative Counsel. Do you want me to put it up on the screen, or you have it?
I have it on my,
in front of you.
I guess for some members of the committee, it'd be easier to put it up on the screen.
Oh, but
I don't know that Senator Clarkson has.
Does Senator Clarkson want me to print it for her?
well, it's Morley and Clarkson here.
Sure.
Not just me.
I can do that.
And I forgot to bring my computer.
Yeah, mine's the other.
Okay, sounds like
Okay.
printed copies or.
So,
Maybe.
Just need to enter the.
and I don't,
Is this two
I still-
or is this eight?
I may have it still in a file from last
Oh,
year.
we may.
It's
S-89.
89, although it's printing for you right now.
Oh, thank you. You're divine.
Was it sheriffs or was it DPW workers?
It was sheriffs.
It was sheriff.
I do support DPW too, but this is state
Yeah.
employees.
Yeah.
Because that's municipal. To be clear, I support.
S-96.
I think I remember you voting for it.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Senator Clarkson.
Thank you.
Well,
Get rid of
Jessica's
South
the-
Hero and replace
Yeah.
Chris. Thank you, my dear.
I remember. Because Jessica's Law in New Hampshire is taking snow off your vehicle.
Right.
Interesting. Which I was surprised at the title of.
Right. Yes, so S-89, we did do a walkthrough of this February 27th of last year, and there was testimony on it as well. And to that point, there was mention of maybe removing the title of Jessica's Law. That was something that's in a House bill. So it did come over that way. So essentially, the bill proposes to extend survivor benefits that are currently available to survivors of firefighters, emergency medical personnel, and volunteer personnel killed in the line of duty, or who pass away within 72 hours from the last date of service in the line of duty, to law enforcement officers, facility employees of the Department of Corrections, and Department of Corrections employees who provide direct security and treatment services to offenders under supervision in the community, classified employees of the Family Services Division of the Department for Children and Families, and classified employees of the state-operated therapeutic community residences or inpatient psychiatric hospital units. So currently the benefit is $80,000. That was increased a couple of years ago from $50,000. And then, going through this is adding in, so on page 2, section 3171, the definitions, again, it's just adding in a definition of law enforcement officers, and then the groups I just went through: Departments of Corrections, Family Services Division, and state-operated therapeutic community residences. And then it's like line 14, it goes through the definitions of line of duty and what that means with respect to each of the groups that are going to be covered by this. Turning on to page 3, it continues with line of duty. And then at the bottom of the page, it turns to the, so the way this operates is that if someone that's covered by this law dies in the line of duty, an application is made to the Emergency Personnel Survivors Benefit Review Board, and that's staffed out of the Treasury, the Treasurer's Office. And again, there was a long gap. I think it was like 6 years where they didn't meet at all. And then unfortunately, they had to meet several times in the last couple of years due to a firefighter death. And I think there was one. Yeah. So it meets only sort of on an as needed basis. And originally there was funding that went into a fund. It's not a sort of recurring, money doesn't automatically go into it. But then last year there was testimony that the fund was going to run out of money given the number of applications that were out there. And there was money that was put into the board. So anyway, that was just by way of a little bit of background on the board itself. So turning to page 4, there's an addition in subsection D, lines 9 and 10. And that provides that the treasurer shall have up to 1 year from the date of receiving a claim to disperse the funds. And that was really just to take into account the fact that there may need to be some time to actually get the funds into the fund.
Senator Bielski.
We should probably bring the treasurer in to talk about this, and it may be a better question for the treasurer, but it sounds like you do have a little bit of that background information about it. And my understanding was the fund only ever kept a fairly modest, enough to pay out kind of like one claim.
I think my understanding, and this may be wrong, definitely have results come in. But my understanding is that originally it started with sort of a lump sum, and then gradually that's been decreased over time.
Okay. Because I remember the treasurer testifying that they're like, they sort of plan on having to ask us if they need to expend. It's not like they had $4 billion that they just were like, oh, we ran out. It's a fairly modest amount that they plan on having to come to us and say, hey, we need to make this payout, which is why this line is in there.
Yeah, I think that at the time they knew that given the number of applications they had pending and how much money was in the fund, they knew that they were going to run out.
Okay. But he should have February, of course.
Sorry, where is the money identified?
Page 4. It's just page 4, lines 9 and 10.
It's not specific.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't have the whole statute in it.
Got it. So are we also considering raising the money up from 80,000?
Not in this bill, but I think we could
Okay, I
certainly.
remember discussion of that, I thought last year also.
It was raised, as I understand it, not this biennium, but the previous biennium.
It was
from
50.
50,000 up to 80,000.
Okay.
And I did want to just add, there is a federal benefit through the Department of Justice that's called the Public Safety Officers Benefits. And right now it's at 400, and I've got the notes in the next the next bill, but it's like $461,000. And that's also a lump sum payment, and that covers death in the line of duty. It also covers if you're permanently disabled in the line of duty, and that does extend to corrections officers already. It has a pretty extensive, like FEMA workers has a pretty extensive list of folks that it covers.
Would you be able to get me the list of people that it covers?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, anticipating sort of that same question. First of all, where does the 80,000 live? Is it in an account that's interest bearing or is it just,
It's,
in other words, why don't we take that 80 and invest it if we're not going to spend it kind of thing?
Right, it seems puzzling.
I mean, at the
And that's
very
a
least, like an
treasure.
interest bearing savings
Something.
account, like it
Just
doesn't
a question,
necessarily have to
and
be
I-
on the market.
Sophie, I don't mean to put you on the spot. You may not have an answer.
The treasurer's office.
I don't have a direct answer for it, but it's in a special fund. And the fund shall comprise appropriations made by the General Assembly, contributions or donations from any other sources. All balances in the fund at the end of the fiscal year should be carried forward and interest earned remains in the fund.
Okay. And my second question is, when Senator Bielski kind of teed this up, it's impossible to predict when someone will lose their life in the line of duty. But do you have any sense, either of you, how many more people this adds to the pool from what is currently in existence? How many other employees are covered now that would not be if this didn't pass? You know what I'm trying to ask?
I do know what you're trying to ask, and I don't, but I think that from the state employees union might be able to answer that
Okay.
for their workers. I don't know that they'd be able to answer it for law enforcement broadly. Because as this is written, it wouldn't only apply to the state employees who are law enforcement, it would apply to law enforcement broadly. So I wonder if,
Okay, well, I think we're gonna have
yeah,
Chief Howard testify.
and I don't know how many law enforcement officers there are. in the state.
That's right, it's not a revolving fund, it just gets drawn down and they need to replace, rejuvenate it every once in a while.
That went on
Last time we rejuvenated it, this last.
I believe it was like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I just like it.
23 or 24.
Yeah.
I think when we did that with Jeanette.
Do you know if there was a mirror bill in the House and whether it,
There is a bill in the House. It is not the same as this bill.
oh, okay.
There is a bill and there's now 2 more bills in the House, so it's a popular subject. There was a bill last year, H57, that was just law enforcement officers. And then when it was in general and housing, it added in correctional officers. It passed out of that committee. It went to House Appropriations, and my understanding is it's on the wall in House Appropriations.
Okay.
But that this bill, as I said, is broader and sort of tries to get at all the dangerous jobs. Especially those that don't get a federal benefit and frankly are largely predominantly staffed by women.
Okay.
Which was not a priority factor, it was just a factor in my frustration with the police only bill is that we're overlooking the dangerous jobs that women do.
Understood. Anyone else have questions for either Senator or Council? No. Okay. Thank you very much, Sophie. We appreciate your time. Are you sticking around for the next one too?
I am, but I don't know
Okay.
if you wanted to hear from anyone else before.
Well, I think we have Steve on the list, don't we? Yeah.
Yes.
So welcome into Steve Howard.
Thank you.
You know everybody, well, you obviously know
Yeah.
most everybody on the committee. I don't know whether,
For this year.
My
no, we
second,
haven't been, yeah.
This is-
Oh, yeah. Okay, welcome.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have to start by saying it's always wonderful to be back in my favorite committee with my favorite senators. And all good things start and run.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
I appreciate the opportunity to testify on this bill, which is among our members' highest legislative priorities this year.
S89 is?
Yeah, we are enthusiastic about the bringing equity to what is now a statute that provides this benefit to firefighters, both professional and volunteer in Vermont. And we support making sure that our members, who I think people forget when they think about state employees, how dangerous the work that state employees do so often really is. It's our law enforcement, family service workers, our mental health folks. If you look at the workers' comp rates in the various agencies, you'll see that among the highest workers' comp claims in those professions. And I think it just goes to show that these are very trying, difficult, traumatic positions. So we urge the legislature to adopt the bill that Senator Hosty introduced. We think it's not a huge fiscal impact, thankfully, that we haven't had a ton of folks in these classifications die in the line of duty. I will say it is an interesting thing that I think people sometimes forget. The CO1 position is the most diverse classification in state government. And some people don't think of often know that, but if you look at the actual statistics, that's true. But in this case, it's important that we believe it's important that Vermont treat the firefighters who've had this benefit, both the federal and the state benefit for quite some time, that there be parity and equity for law enforcement, for family service workers, for mental health workers, and also for correctional officers, both in the field and facilities.
Do you have a sense of how many people we're adding?
I could probably guess. I'm gonna get. I don't know the local police numbers. I would guess that there's roughly 300 to 400 state troopers.
Okay.
We represent the lieutenants who work for the state police. The VTA represents the rank and file trooper. We have about 110 law enforcement officers who are not state troopers, certified law enforcement officers who have various roles, game wardens, DMV, that kind of stuff. I think there are about 300 to 400 COs, CO1, CO2s, supervisors. Maybe there's probably more than that, actually, with the supervisors in that category. And then all of the probation and parole officers. I actually don't know how many probation and parole officers they have off the top of my head, but and then I don't want to guess at the mental health workers either, because it gets a little confusing if we know we have a huge shortage of both in correctional officers and in nurses. There's a ton of vacant positions.
But it sounds like it's a few hundred, at least.
Yeah, at least.
Senator Beals?
So three things. I imagine those vacant positions in these dangerous jobs, unfortunately, make them more dangerous jobs, thus making it more likely that someone might be injured or
Yeah, they do.
hopefully not killed. I wanted to give you, I Googled it. There's 330 state troopers, nice estimating. And it looks like statewide, it fluctuates between 1,000 and 1,100 sworn law enforcement officers across the whole spectrum. That includes those 330 state employees. And I'm wondering if you, or maybe this is a better question for DHR, might be able to get us the numbers broken down by category that this would add and the vacant positions, because in a perfect world, those would be filled and they would be in the pool as well. So separate, like the number of filled positions and then separately the number of vacant positions.
So that you would have, we could probably provide you the numbers of folks in the bargaining unit, but I don't know that we have the vacant position. HR definitely has it. And I think it's in fact maybe on their website
On the dashboard.
the dashboard.
I hate to say this, I find it clunky and challenging.
Yeah, and
information.
And they buried it deep, so you have to usually just right there, and I take 10 different things to find it, but it definitely would probably be able to answer it. One of the things that we did work out with the treasurer's office, which we thought was a good sort of guardrail for the legislature and for the state, was to give the treasurer up to a year to pay out the benefit. So you can apply for it, you can be approved for it, and the treasurer has up to a year to pay it out. And the reason we did that was because if there was a mass casualty event,
Yes.
which there could be,
That's just.
the treasurer could then come back to the legislature and say, we've had this mass event and we want to provide the benefit, and would you appropriate the money for it? Because I think they did have some concern that they didn't have a lot of money in there, would they be able to provide this benefit? So we thought that was a way of being able to come back in general assembly and ask for funding should something like that happen. And I will say, I I hope this doesn't happen, but we have facilities that are so varyingly staffed that we are concerned that we're going to lose one of these facilities. Some would say it's a matter of time, given how low staffing levels are. We don't have a forensic facility.
Right.
So our mental health folks are going in there, doing their work, and paying the price for it. A lot of physical assaults. So, and I think just in general, I think it would be hard not to observe that society in itself has become more violent toward public officials.
Senator Bielski.
So this is sort of a two-parter. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that with the exception of law enforcement officers that are not the state troopers, every other thing on this list is a state employee.
Well, they're all state employees.
Well, no, the Williston police aren't state employees,
Well,
and this would apply
right.
to law enforcement broadly. So maybe I should reframe that. So when I go down the list, so everything except the law enforcement officers, who some of those are employees, but some of them aren't. Everything else on the list is state. That we're proposing.
Yeah, so the state troopers, they're the lieutenants, those are state employees. The 110 other certified law enforcement officers are state employees. And then the other classifications would all be state employees.
Right. Okay. And to my knowledge, the last time a state employee was killed in the line of duty was almost 11 years ago when Laura Swift was killed.
Yeah.
So this is not something that would come into play often. I'm curious, and you can't answer this, but I'm curious again to figure out who the entity would be that could, because the two, Sophie, was it two times that this benefit had to pay out in the last year?
I think there were three.
But those are people already existing. The
Right,
people
right.
we're proposing to add wouldn't have drawn on this in the last 11 years.
No, right now it's only authorized for firefighters.
Yes, no, I know they couldn't have drawn, but had this bill been in effect, there would have been nothing.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, Lara Sobel, was 11 years ago, and we did a separate appropriation to help her family. But so no, there wouldn't have been.
Like, I think it is important to know what the number is that we're talking about, but I also think it's important to keep in mind that this fiscal impact only happens if someone dies, and that hasn't happened in 11 years.
Yeah.
understood. Senator Mormon.
So, Steve, does someone like an actuarial need to take a look
I
at
was
this?
just thinking of that.
Once, so we pass this. And does like an actuarial need to just look at that so we can figure out, because you're gonna be tying up GF funds into the future years, I think somehow, some way, you're gonna pay for this benefit and take it to GF, general funds.
Yeah.
And so would an actuarial from some department or the treasurer's office or someone just be able to put something together somehow, some way? Or have you already looked at it? I don't know.
I think I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's not quite the same as a pension. You surely could do that. I'm not sure it's necessary. It's not. Barring a mass casualty event, these are going to be hopefully few and far between. So, and at that point, you would have time, because you have that delay. You'd have that time to determine how the state wanted to respond to it if there wasn't enough funds in the special fund. So I'm not sure. It's not quite this. It's not invested, so it's not relying on investment returns other than interest. It's a little bit different than. I'm not sure we do that with any other special funds.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, I had the same thought. I had the same
Yeah.
thought. And, again, making predictions, I mean, if we knew how to do that, we could all win the lottery.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
it's hard to, and it's very sort of negative to try to predict when someone's gonna lose their life.
Yeah, it's different from a pension in the sense every time you change a pension, you need an actuarial
Yeah.
report because
Yeah.
it's different because you know that
Right.
that is going to be paid out. Here, you hope it's never going to be paid out.
Exactly.
And when it does, it's not it's not, on the scale of.
I was just saying you're adding them, 300,
No,
No, it's over 1,000,
it
but,
was 1,000 more,
I think-
so.
Right.
but every one of them is not gonna die in the line of.
No, I'm just saying,
No, I think we.
you have potential to add more expense, so it's just.
Yeah.
We know it is.
okay. Well, is there anything else for Steve? I'm a counter, where Senator Norris is in the room now
There he
with
is.
a sort of similar bill, and we'll walk through that. Does anyone have anything else for Steve?
Should I give my standard? I apologize for anything Vince might have said.
Well, you haven't said anything yet, so.
I see he's in the room, so
Yeah.
I want to distance myself as quickly as I can. Make sure I protect the interest of the members of the NCA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Senator Norris, you're up next. Thank you for joining us. I know the room next door must be busy. Senator Norris is in the Senate Appropriations Committee. So we're going to walk through S-222, which is a new bill this year. And this is an act related to survivor and disability benefits for the emergency personnel, which is a little bit different than the bill that we walked through. And I just like Senator Norris to kind of give us an idea of why he had this drafted, what has prompted him to do this, and welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. Many members I recognize from my short period of time here in government operations. For the record, my name is Senator Robert Norris. I thought you were talking about my bill upon first coming in. I'd like to thank the Ledge Council Sophie too for working with me on this.
Yep.
I can assure she's done most of the work on this. So this bill, in essence, not only includes survivors, but it includes members who have disability benefits, but it's the permanent disability benefits. That's what it amounts to. And we're still looking at the same sums of money up to $80,000. So not only, survivors of someone who lost may have lost from the line of duty, but I am looking to add law enforcement and local firefighters and EMS. See that S-89 goes a little bit further in contrast when it comes to members there. But this is something that, as you probably well know, after taking testimony on S-89, this is something that is run through the treasurer's office. There's a 5-member board. There's designees from many different areas, one to include the AG's office, and also this added from, just training council. This can pay up to $80,000, like I said before, but in contact with the treasurer's office, what I can assure you is, I know when we spoke about this a couple of years back, we wanted to DPW and whatever else, to include them also as emergency workers. And I thought at that point in time, there's only $500,000 in the fund. So in 2024, excuse me again, 3 claims were paid out for a total of $240,000. And in 2025, 1 claim was paid out. And prior to that, there's not been a whole lot of activity. But we're also looking at survivors from death and disability benefits also. So that may increase, but these are permanent disabilities what we're looking at. I just feel that in these times of everything going on, both nationally and locally, whatever else, that this is something we should at least entertain, take a look at. And this grand total of $80,000. I know earlier conversations with law enforcement, so on and so forth, they want to come at it from through the pension plan. Obviously not the best you're looking at 80% of someone's pension fund this year going in, maybe next year also. So my thought was to try to help as many folks out as we could, get our foot in the door and just go for the $80,000 versus something which costs millions of dollars in that particular area. So having said that, that's pretty much my involvement with this. Any of the difficult questions or areas?
That's what Sophie's here for, right?
That's what Sophie's here for, unless someone's got a question of me.
Senator Vyhovsky.
I do, and I appreciate the permanent disability aspect of this. I'm wondering if you have any sense over the last, say, decade, how many of roughly 1,100 law enforcement officers have had to retire due to permanent disability.
I don't, but what brought this on was the most recent instance in St. Johnsbury and Milton, the officers involved there shootings. And I'm not sure if they're back to work or if they have been permanently disabled, but that's certainly something I can find out and get back to this committee.
Yeah, that would be
Right,
really
exactly.
fantastic, because that's a pretty broad or it's broad. And I'm just thinking like news articles. I can think of 3 in just the last couple of years. There was the car accident with the severe head injury of the state trooper. And so that would be great if you could get back to me with the sort of number in the last decade.
Senator Morley.
Stupid when it comes to this stuff, so I apologize, but would they're gonna get disability through Social Security, I think.
Would think so.
So this would be in addition to the Social Security benefit.
This is a one-time payout, which will come probably much quicker than the social security benefits will come or anything else to insurance companies. This is something that they apply to the board within 10 days. The board gives their decision on it. Both for survivors and permanently disabled.
Senator Bielski.
So does your bill not contain the 1-year delay for the treasurer's office to actually come up with funds?
That would be a Sophie question.
Okay.
That's out of my wheelhouse. But I appreciate your question. Tell you that was, I just got a lateral.
I watched.
Did you fumble?
No.
And are there two separate funds here? I'm trying, because they're both 80,000. Is it the same fund for both, or are there 2 separate funds going on?
I think, without speaking for Senator Volsky, I think we're both building off the same funding mechanism
Okay.
of the $80,000. Hers and my bills are somewhat alike, but somewhat different is what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
you folks to say, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to mix and blend on this stuff here? Keep them all or blow, throw them all away. I don't care what you do as long as it comes something for our police and EMS and law enforcement.
Okay.
And firefighters.
Does anyone else have questions for Senator Norris?
I do have one more, and that is, and perhaps it is just the scope of how this came to you, but I am wondering why you're only looking at law enforcement, and not any of the other incredibly dangerous jobs that we ask people to do.
Well, this bill includes law enforcement, emergency responders and firefighters in my building. I don't know which one you refer to.
So I have, as you know, a similar bill and sort of looked at a lot of the frontline workers, like our family service workers. And I'm just wondering if you gave any consideration to those things. And I don't know if there's any nexus with the state employees union with your bills, but I did with the state employees union. And the last time that a state employee was killed was actually a family services worker. So I'm just wondering if there was, again, it may simply be like, this is what came to me, and I just didn't.
Well, thank you for the question. Basically, this is what came to me also, but I have to tell you that I think anybody should receive some compensation while they're in the line of duty. However, being on appropriations, I was looking at the overall cost. This particular program, rather than have something get flushed away because of the cost, I'd like to be able to get my foot in the door, one of us get our foot in the door to make sure something does come out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're familiar that law enforcement and a lot of our emergency service workers already have access to an over 400,000 federal benefit.
Yes.
Awesome.
Anything else for Senator Norris? Senator Clarkson?
No.
Okay. Well, please go back to your committee and start appropriating.
Hey, thank you very much.
I think we just heard from our previous witness that we need a full-time position, maybe. I'm just playing.
All right. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Mom. Sophie, you're back in the seat.
Yes, good afternoon again. So Natalie for the Office of Legislative Counsel. What I thought might be helpful for the committee was having a comparison of these 2 bills, so I could actually.
Oh, that is much.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Just a little bit.
Right, yeah. You got it.
All right.
I give you a space.
Thank you.
Have to like become part of the table.
I think we've already made a decision on the first case.
Oh, I'm totally happy to remove that. If that was not,
Why was that there at the first?
it's not really a decision that I made. The bill was really just. It came from the house.
Got it.
I'm fine.
So I think to one of the questions that was asked at the end there in terms of the one-time funding. This bill, I don't believe has that in. It has some of the other provisions that were discussed on the House side, and so I can talk about those when we get there. But again, as Senator Norris said, this essentially what this bill does is it takes the current survivor benefits law, it adds in law enforcement, and then it also adds a disability payout. So that would include law enforcement, but then all the current folks covered by the existing law. So in light of that, on the S-222, it also looks at changing the name of the fund, etc. So there are some additional
Senator Buck,
changes on.
So I guess I'm a little puzzled with the disability benefit. Why isn't that covered by workers' comp?
It would be covered by workers' comp. This would be an added benefit for someone that's permanently disabled and unable to return to work.
But isn't,
Yeah, workers' comp, yes, they would still.
they also compensate for that
And
does,
actually
it
we
does.
compensated through SSDI.
and SSDI. So
Yes, there are other sources of funding. The goal of this, and I'm in the middle of page 4, lines 10, an award of monetary benefit under section 3173 of this title shall not diminish or otherwise impair any other benefit that the disabled emergency personnel is entitled to receive under state or federal law. So this is intended as an additional benefit, not a replacement benefit.
sort of special. Okay. Got it.
All right. All right, so page 1.
Proposed by former law enforcement.
But
So page 1 on this is again, just changing the name from a survivor's benefit for emergency personnel to just add in the term disability benefit. So that would be changing the name of the board at the bottom of page 1. Page 2, line 6 is where where this bill adds law enforcement officers. And then it adds them as into the definition of emergency personnel. So it doesn't then need to keep repeating that the whole way through. It would just add law enforcement officers to the definition of emergency personnel. And then again, towards the bottom of the page, on page 2, it lists out what in the line of duty would be for a law enforcement officer. And then on page 3, it adds a definition at line 8, subsection 7, permanent total disability means a disability as defined in the workers' compensation statute. And then line 12, again, changing the name of the board to add the word disability. And this would also add on line 18 at the bottom of page 3. Again, Senator Norris had mentioned that the board is made up of a variety of folks. This would add in the executive director of the Vermont Criminal Justice Council or designee as a member of the board. And then turning to page 4, again, this is just adding, so this is really where the meat of the bill is, a new subsection 3, starting at line 6, emergency personnel, and it goes through who suffer a permanent total disability in the line of duty may also request the same monetary benefit that's currently available. And as I noted before, it would not, that benefit, if they receive it, wouldn't impact any of the other benefits to which they would be entitled. So line 14, that's just a editing fix.
so I just want to be clear, back on line 7. So this isn't just state workers, this is folks that work for municipality as well.
This is emergency personnel that work for municipality.
Okay.
So this is the firefighters, the
Yeah.
emergency medical
That
personnel that
ambulance,
respond, right?
So this includes volunteers.
Right. So originally, my understanding is this fund was created specifically for firefighters because a lot of them were volunteers and they didn't otherwise have access to benefit. So that was the origin of this benefit.
So do firefighters not have access to the federal benefit,
They do,
even if they're volunteer?
I believe so.
Oh, good.
Other question?
Okay, forgive me, I suppose I should know this, but workers' comp doesn't get paid out to people who are volunteers, does it?
Right, because normally it's through your employer, but I think there may be, I would just want to check.
So there is, so This is a big question mark for volunteers.
Yes, because I'm not sure who would pay for it, right?
Right.
Because workers' compensation is paid
We
for.
would pay for it.
Right.
So that, I think that's a question.
All right. So, and again, page 5 is just adding in language, a disabled emergency personnel, just to make it consistent, throughout. Page 6, page 7, the same thing. So page 7, line 6, that's the monetary benefit. That's where the 80,000 is listed. And it adds in an emergency personnel who suffer a permanent total disability in the line of duty. And then there are a couple of additional provisions in section 3175 on page 6. And again, this came out of testimony from last year around the challenge in the treasurer's office if there isn't enough money to pay out from the fund. So this would provide that the fund can also be comprised of appropriations made by the General Assembly and then amounts transferred by the Emergency Board when the General Assembly is not in session. So it just provides that there's that option to request it. And then at the end, on page 7, subsection C, in the event of that the balance of the fund is insufficient to pay the monetary benefits, when the General Assembly is not in session, the Emergency Board can transfer the additional amounts. So that's additional language that's in there to address that.
Senator Muller. Yeah. On EMS, does that include ambulance services as well? Ambulance. Ambulance.
Ambulance.
So there's all types of ambulance services, because sometimes you have
Right.
all volunteer, you have full time, and then sometimes you have both. So there's a hybrid.
So what this bill, well, the current statute does is it cross-references in Title 20, the definitions of firefighter. So for example, it has in the cross definition of firefighter in Title 20, but then in Title 24, it defines medical volunteer personnel so that it hooks into definitions that are in other places.
So yes,
Yes, yes.
because of this law.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a,
There is, I mean, and there are a lot of
Far more
volunteer firefighters too.
There's a law.
right.
So
So I'm trying to wrap my brain around this.
I think we need a JFO weigh in on this. The cost of this would be significant.
Again, well, we don't know the numbers on those that are permanently disabled, right?
Yeah. I haven't heard of more than one a year.
I can think of 3 in the last couple of years.
Oh, volunteer firefighters?
Oh, no, I'm at
Thank
least.
you.
Oh, yeah, right. No, that's true. That's a good point.
So if we were in the 400,000.
And would that pertain to all of the
Yeah.
answers that they
Sorry,
gave?
where did they go? EBOS?
Holy cow.
It didn't look like that when I came in.
No.
I'm sorry.
Senator Norris mentioned $400,000 in the fund.
Oh,
Where did the
yes.
400 come from?
So there's this federal benefit that's called the Public Safety Officers Benefit. And it provides a cash benefit to federal, state, local law enforcement officers, firefighters, employees of emergency management agencies, members of emergency medical service agencies who are killed or permanently and totally disabled as a result of personal injury sustained in the line of duty. It also has, and that amount goes up each year. And I think it gets set in October. And I believe it's 461,000 and something right now. And then there's also an education benefit that goes.
Senator
with that.
Norris.
So that's the federal statute,
That's the federal
and that would
statute.
apply to disability. So S22 proposes to give $80,000 of state money to people who are already eligible for over $400,000 of federal money.
I think,
Senator White.
I'll just say, but this is someone like dying in the line of duty.
And
Or
we
really
have
interesting.
plenty of people who have, well, not plenty.
Oh, I agree with your bill, but I also agree with this bill. I'm always going to be in favor of people who die in the line of duty, having their family and community get it.
Absolutely. I just think if we're seeking fiscal responsibility and we're concerned about the spending the money on people who already have
Already are
access to
covered.
$400,000 of federal money while ignoring the people who have access to no federal money and do equally dangerous jobs. And like, if we have to pick and choose, I would want to give the $80,000 to people. I don't want to pick and choose. But if we
Yeah,
have to,
okay, yeah.
I would want to give that money to people who don't have access to a $400,000 benefit. who have also had members of their staff die in the line of duty. Again, I don't want to pick and choose, but if I have to, I would want to prioritize people who have equally dangerous jobs that don't have access to $460,000 of federal money.
I don't think $400,000 is enough.
Neither is 80, and right now we're giving 80,000 in addition to that
Yeah,
in this bill, while continuing to give nothing.
I would like to do both. Is this my
But if we have,
opinion?
like, yeah, if we have to pick and choose for fiscal responsibility's sake. I'm simply putting out where my priorities would lie, and that would be on people who currently get nothing.
Yes, and yes, I hear that.
Any other questions for Attorney Splatney?
Thank you for the side by side.
Yeah, that was helpful.
Okay, I just thought it would be.
Yeah.
It's incredibly helpful. Thank
There
you.
are, as I say, there are bills in the house too, so there's a lot of different versions going around.
Okay.
What's
Cause there's three more.
I think there's
We should
3
talk
bills
about
in the house.
So
There's 2 new ones and then there's H57 from last year.
Together here somehow, some way.
They're all slightly different flavors.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yes.
Um,
So I will say one of the ones in the house is identical to Senator Norris's bill. It's a
Okay.
companion bill, so it's essentially identical.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, please.
Anyone else can have some too. I have more in the drawer. if they need.
I needed some about 20 minutes ago. I was all sudden hit with exhaustion.
That's dark peanut butter. This is dark and raspberry. I also have.
Garden and raspberry.
Very much.
So we'll take further testimony. I'll take on both. And see where we go. I have the treasurer written down as a potential witness on S89 and also VHR. I'm not sure who else to have in on 222, but maybe joint fiscal, I don't know. It seems like they, well, again.
I think joint fiscal wouldn't be
All right,
key to get.
so
I just don't know how they would even make a prediction.
yeah, no.
Well, I mean, particularly with the volunteers. I'm sorry, the workers' comp for volunteers is really problematic.
I will check on that. I mean, maybe there's some way that it's handled, but I didn't see it when I noticed, but
And I have
will
a son,
check.
volunteer firefighter, but I
I don't know if other states maybe have done something.
Yeah,
similar to
they
this.
must have done
Something.
I mean, to me, the very concept of asking someone to risk their life on a volunteer basis is wacky, but
I don't disagree.
Without them, we'd be in a lot worse shape. Okay, thank you, Sophie.
Thank you. Barry.
Just
Oh my God, it's a great.
for the committee's,
Want some raspberry?
I just have my piece, thank you.
I needed this.
and folks that are watching or listening on YouTube, that's fine. Next week, well, tomorrow, first of all, we have, folks coming in from the Cannabis Control Board. And also, let me. So James Pepper, the chair of the CCB, will be here at 1, and Dave Silverman, the director of Vermont Cannabis Action Fund, will also be coming in at 1. I don't have anything else on the calendar for tomorrow. We have other bills we could run through a couple. Yeah, Senator White.
Well, I'm just wondering, since we're having the cannabis control board, we have one cannabis related bill that I know I introduced.
I have 2 that I expect to get numbers and make it some.
Yeah, I was-
But I think they're both gonna go to judiciary.
Oh, well, I was gonna
There's
say,
3 committees of jurisdiction. If it's related to cannabis sale or commerce, or it comes to our committee, Senate Economic Development.
If it has to change statute.
No, I changed it.
Well, I mean, like criminal statute. If it has to turn criminal, it goes to judiciary.
It's a judiciary. Why is it coming here?
Because it's elections. It's about elections.
Oh.
That's why, because I was asking the same question.
Why do you have to have an election?
It would, well, it's.
yeah, so I guess my whole point is if we could just talk about it tomorrow in conjunction to at least get their comment on, well, if we could do S-276 tomorrow.
Okay.
To get their comment, I'm
Why are
happy
they
to.
coming in here?
Because we had the Vermont League of Cities and Towns want us to do some cannabis stuff, and I figured we should hear from the CCB.
Okay, well, we don't,
If VLCT wants to do stuff on campus, they tend to kind of,
Trust me,
you see,
it
opt-in,
belongs
opt-out.
here. It belongs here.
Who made the decision opt-in, opt-out?
I don't know what before my time.
It's
think it
opting in right now.
Bill, I think it was judiciary.
Yeah, so
It
my,
was not
It was
me.
probably next year.
Okay, well, we're getting rattled here. Yours would change that, which is arguably our jurisdiction.
Yes, it's a municipality.
I'm still not clear why we're gonna have, and it's great to have James and Dave come in, but Senate Ag is the committee of jurisdiction when you're growing it as a plant. As soon as it comes out,
So
and
there
it
are four committees.
becomes a product, it goes to Senate Economic Development
So,
or Judiciary.
so oddly, that canvas has four committees.
and if you are driving while impaired, transportation can be in the mix.
Well, yeah, I get it.
You added to that.
You guess.
What about if you're teaching cannabis courses? Does that then go to?
Right.
Sorry about that.
At any rate, that's for tomorrow. We'll have a room tooting good time with our canvas. Next week, the Ethics Commission will be in at 1 o'clock on Tuesday. Right now, it's Paul Earlman and Earl Baum, excuse me, who is the commissioner, and potentially more witnesses. I did not hear any of the other witnesses might be, but he's coming in at 1 o'clock.
Oh. May have a witness. I got an email, in the last day or two, of the plumbing test trying to start, I'm trying to pull it for you. Okay.
We'll also take our first look at a bill that may or may not advance. I mean, all of these are may or may not. S 275, an act relating to creation of the cemetery vandalism response fund.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we
It's-
got it.
That's a
It's,
David Weeks bill, that's a you and David Weeks bill.
it's Dave Weeks, Senator Williams, and myself on behalf of Tom
The old-
Giffen,
Right.
who was the cemetery commissioner for Rutland City and also was president of VOCA, which is the Vermont Old Cemetery Association. And it came about when, again, we were doing summer work trying to restore graveyards. And,
I would really
you
like.
would be amazed how much, and maybe I missed the memo when I was a teenager about, let's go to the cemetery and knock some headstones over. It was never anything I would ever think, as I think Lynn was here when I said, you know, if you soap somebody's window on Halloween or you threw toilet paper over a tree, that was about as bad as we got. This is like serious, expensive vandalism. So the bill would charge, when you have a funeral or a cremation, I assume, a fee. I don't know, I think it's $5. And that would begin to get collected and put in a fund for vandalism repair. That's what the whole bill is. So we will hear from Tom Giffen.
I think that's a great idea because
Well,
some are public and some are private, but all of them don't have enough money to repair those.
I agree. That's why we're gonna take it up. Senator?
Mr. Chair, yes, I'm very interested in that bill.
Oh.
We have less of, I would say, like teenage hijink vandalism and more of people backing up and like running over a gravestone and then. I mean, exactly.
Is that like during the
Yeah, it's like, people-
service or they're going to the?
it seems like people visiting
Oh,
their family members and then not seeing a headstone, making a turn. Yeah, we have,
How is
so
that
not
possible?
vandals.
yeah, I still think I would consider it vandalism because it is breaking and.
So their
It's hit and
insurance,
run.
their insurance.
That's not good.
Well, it's like it's like, how do you know? You don't know how it got knocked over. But
Yeah,
the assumption is we probably a vehicle, like someone probably.
Tell somebody.
You have a good moral code and not everyone.
I'm gonna put my judiciary hat on. Vandalism has a very specific.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, you- and
It's not vandalism.
Well, I guess that's kind of my
Yes,
your
your
intent.
You have to have intent.
Is if it's not just, I would be interested as well if it's not just
Well,
vandalism.
Tom Giffen could probably, I mean, he's, like I said, he's the head.
It's Mr. Cemetery.
So those are the two items Tuesday. Wednesday,
Yes, he's Mr. Cemetery.
we're gonna talk with, Shelley Martin, who's president of the Vermont Retired State Employees, with some requests that they have to amend the makeup of the Retired Employee Committee on Insurance, so-called RECI. I don't know, I believe Steve Howard will be in right behind Shelley. to testify where the VSEA stands on it, because I don't think they're not, they may be aligned, but they're not the same group. There's a retired state employees group and then the VSEA, they're not the same thing. So that's all I have for that. Thursday is 255, which is Senator Harrison's bill about establishing pilot law enforcement governance council in Windham County. We're gonna have Senator Wendy Harrison started off, and then Tim Devlin walked through the bill. Jeanette White, former senator from Windham County. I don't believe she's gonna hike up here, but we'll have her on Zoom. And then Sheriff Mark Anderson, who's the Windham County Sheriff. From what I understand, and I think I've explained this before, they have gone out, Mark probably more than others, and talked to the town managers and the select board of everybody in Windham County. And they're all, let's just say there's great support for this particular sort of idea. It's a pilot, so whatever the costs are gonna have to be borne probably by folks there. And then if it works, it might be something that we can
Yeah, we could try.
take to other counties.
Well, we have been wanting to keep this moving for a long time.
Yeah.
Curious to see what it looks like.
So that's Thursday, and again, I don't have anything else, we'll probably flesh things out. And then on Friday, we're gonna have a meeting to allow retirement Group C law enforcement officers remain in Group C after becoming police recruit trainers at the Vermont Police Academy. Existing statute would require them to join Group F.
Yeah.
Which is probably different benefits, but I know it's length of time, 20 years worth of service versus 30. So things change for them and they want to stay in Group C and have a nice cozy little time. So, again, we'll hear from Steve Howard.
What's happened to our voting rights bill?
Next week.
What's happened to our voting rights bill?
It was not introduced today.
No.
Can we plan on taking that up next week?
As soon as it's introduced.
I don't know if it makes sense to not have Steve Howard have to come in a additional time, but I also, S-295 was just introduced today and is on our wall. And that's also about changes to the state employees.
Yeah.
retirement system,
okay.
So it might make sense to take those up at the same time,
Good idea.
or not at the same time, because apparently most people can't do two things at once.
Okay.
We just did two things at once.
But in the same,
So that's the group membership in the state employee retirement system.
yes, that's.
Are you suggesting that would be Friday or?
I would do it whenever you're doing the Group C thing,
Yeah, okay. That would
because
be fine. Even though the other one's also a retirement thing, but that's all right.
yes, I will give you some information as to why I think that makes the most
Okay.
sense.
So that's what I got for next week. I know that with all available, ability to predict, we're gonna have some weather to deal with. Probably not tomorrow. I don't think tomorrow's an issue. We'll probably be in and be able to get out of here, although I'm not sure we're expecting this. But
There were some snow squalls.
very cold on Saturday, and then Sunday, late afternoon, we're supposed to get half a foot, and then Monday, another half a foot. So it could be a little bit dicey getting up here next week. I usually come up Mondays,
Yeah,
so
that's fine.
I'll just leave earlier and drive more slowly and ride. I hate coming up when I gotta get up
Yeah.
and drive and then get.
Is-
So
The concern for Tuesday morning weather.
Yes.
I think it'll be over by then.
Okay.
But I don't know how quickly things get cleaned up. And, you know, as I've said, I'm not a weatherman. What a job, right? You get paid regardless of how accurate you are. All you gotta do is say partly. Partly sunny, partly cloudy. That's 15 inches. Yeah. And so none of this may happen. I mean, it could be just another cloudy weekend here in Vermont. I don't know, but I'm just making you aware that
Monday, it's definitely gonna snow. It's exciting. God, this is great for
When
business.
I think when I looked at the map, it was
Are we still on?
heavier in southern.
Which is fine.
Vermont. But certainly is worth being aware of. That it's.
I like when we stay on because I think people can get a sense of
Who we
the
really?
five of us and, you know, sometimes people think, well, when that camera goes up, I bet the knives come up and that doesn't happen in this committee. It
I
just
mean,
doesn't.
Yeah, we're not afraid to let them come out right on the record.
So again, I want to thank Lynn Jakubowskis for another good week.
Yay.
And you seem to be settling in very nicely and we appreciate all your hard work. And if you have issues or want to have additions to the agenda beside the two that we've asked about, just let me know over the weekend. Well, I keep thinking this is Friday. So
We get a light Friday.
that's it for the day. We'll adjourn for the day. We'll see all of you tomorrow.